Shalom, shalom. Kal halalina Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. All praises and honor, glory, blessings, and power be unto the Most High Abanawa Yahweh, Bahashem, in the name of Yahweh Shai, okay, our Redeemer, our Mediator, okay, our Savior, okay, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. All praises, honor, glory, blessings, and power be unto Abanawa Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the prophets of that body. And shalom to the 144,001 third. May peace and blessings be upon your households. All right, I've got a new segment here by CBN News. It's approximately 3 weeks ago, right? You know, we've always been hearing the term civil war, civil war, civil war. And obviously there's something called revelation of the method, which Esau, the so-called white man, likes to do, because they're the powers that be. They are the owners of this current rulership. They've been given the reins, which are slowly slipping away. Okay, like a person trying to hold on to the edge of a cliff, and they're trying to redeem themselves, bring them back up on top. Esau is holding on by approximately 2 fingers, one on each hand. Right? Esau's rulership is slipping away. Okay, now these Edomites are the biggest pocket watchers. You know, they like to, they always have to, make a comment on, what kind of car you drive, blah, blah, blah. You know how it is. But as you get to know the pattern of these crackers, you start putting them in their place as well when they try and make comments by watching your pocket. What you have, what you drive, all that kind of thing. You get me? So Esau, being the murderer, the so-called white man, being the murderer that they are, because their weapon is, their power is their weaponry. Hence you got movies like Iron Man, which represents Esau, the so-called white man, in its entirety. They got money, yes, the elites have money. They got access to all kinds of futuristic type weapons, okay, which we've only seen a small glimpse of in the movies, but they got that shit for real, all right? They've got them Iron Man suits. They've got all types of weaponry. They've got cloaking devices. They've got motherfuckers that are super soldiered up, juiced up, and all that. They've got all that shit. They've got all sorts of nasty shit, man. What do you call it? Crossing the species and shit. When the Lord said there's one, flesh of man, one flesh of beast. These crackers, man, want to play God. They like to. Blur the lines and start, like that show back in the 80s called Manimal. They want to make, cross, so-called humans or humans with animals and shit. And they do that, Now Esau, being the murderer that they are, of the planet, the thief that they are, right? They destroy the whole world. And then they say to you afterwards, oh, look at how you live. They call certain countries shithole countries, this, down, the third, when you crackers, you honkies, you dirty Edomites that don't bathe, you ugly pigskin devils, when you crackers went to other lands, why did you go there? Why did you go to India? Why did you go to parts of Africa, numerous countries in Africa? Why did you go to the Americas? Why did you go to Australia? Why did you go to New Zealand? Why did you go to China, Japan, all these other lands? All right. Why did you go to the East? Why? Because that's where the wealth is, the gold, the silver, the diamonds, the precious metals, all the historic artifacts that you have. You created all these train lines from one part of the country to the other. Why? To steal, right? And then when you had to leave, what do? You caused communal violence. Now the same thing is happening to you. Let's go Galatians 6 verse 7. All right? Salakia, man, I punched it too many times. Galatians 6 verse 7, King James Version. I'm going to play the new segment in a second, all right? All right, there's something called payback. One second, let me go back to the new segment, all right? Before I play this, only 5-minute video, yeah? Check this out, right? Look how jealous these crackers are. Foreigners owning more properties in London than Brits should tell you where Britain is heading. Number one, okay, the real Brits, right? The real British are Israelites, okay? It was the Southern Kingdom, the so-called black man that was ruling here. And a lot of the elites know that. And a lot of Edomites, so-called white people that are educated, that come from so-called well-off homes, and that have some kind of clout in this world, they know, right, who the kings of the earth are. They know, but it's just you low-level honkies, that are that are working in these stores, that work in construction sites, that don't know shit. You think the white man, you believe all the fucking movies that your people have made, where you're the Egyptians, you're the British, you're the Musketeers, you're the Israelites, you're the, you're the Persians. You don't want to motherfuckers want to be everybody. But when you go to those parts of the world, do you see people looking like you? Huh? Foreigners owning more properties in London than Brits should tell you where Britain is going. All right? Those foreigners are the same foreigners you stole from, so-called white man. All right? Those people actually work. See, the thing was, I'm not bigging up the heathen, but the thing with, listen, let's just talk about Israelites first. Israelites, right? Whether they're Nigerian, whether they're Ghanaian, whether they're Israelite foreigners from northern India, like my family, Jake comes over, right? Or even my Jamaican brothers and sisters, the tribe of Benjamin. They come over, they work hard, bruv, okay? A lot of these Jamaicans were bus drivers, nurses, they used to pick up the trash. You crackers don't want to work for that. You crackers, my father worked in construction for 50 years. My dad rarely took a weekend off. You know when the Edomites, his Edomite bosses would ask other Edomites in the construction site, other white people, so-called white people, oh yeah, do you want to work the weekend? You're going to get paid time and a half. You're going to get paid double. You get paid for the whole shift, but you can leave at work at 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. None of the honkies wanted that. But my dad and his cousins, because they worked as a crew, right? They always friends, right? Who were mainly brown guys, because obviously in the 70s and everything, everybody stuck to their own race, and everyone's trying to fucking blur the lines now. But back then, right, it was mainly the so-called white bosses would go to the brown people, the Jakes, the West Indians, the Indians, right? Like my dad and that. They said, yeah, Dave, do you want to work the weekend? Yeah, my dad would say, yeah, sure. My dad rarely took a weekend off. Okay, because when Jake comes into a country or whatever, and my father even says this as well, even to this day, he goes, when you're young, 18 onwards, you can work hard from 18 to 40 years old. After 40, you're going to get tired. So it's best to get it in, work hard, work all the hours in the world, so you got, some kind of you got something to show for it. You buy another home, you put that on rent, so you got like a little nest egg or whatever. That's how people thought in the 70s, and there's nothing wrong with thinking like that. All right, that's just sheer hard work, right? But these honkies, these Edomites, they blow their money. They don't buy a second home, and then they wonder why people that work construction jobs, that work as bricklayers, that work as nurses or whatever, right? Or even guys that pick up the trash are driving nice cars, because Jake goes above and beyond. And even the heathen, the Edomites, they do all types of jobs that so-called white man don't want to do. The white man will say, oh, I don't want to work weekends. Oh, I don't want to do this shift. Oh, that money's too low. But Jake, when I say Jake, I'm talking about the black Hispanic and Native Indian and the Israelite foreigner, right? They would just say, yeah, I'm going to do it, right? Okay? The term that sticks in my head is like my brother graduated from university. He got a job, right? Okay? And the money wasn't up to par. And I made a comment saying, oh, mate, it's not really that high. And my brother said, he goes to me, it's better than nothing. It is better than nothing. That was 20 plus years ago. All right? So Jake will go above and beyond. Will go above and beyond. But these honkies, these Edomites, they are just jealous, right? They don't want to see you succeed. And if they see you succeed, what do they want to do? They want to burn you down. They want to burn your properties. They want to murder you like they did the race riots in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Black Wall Street, and thousands of other black towns and Native Indian towns and Hispanic towns that these honkies burnt down and flooded in America. They did the same thing here. Then they whitewash history, So if you're succeeding, they don't want to see you succeed. They want to destroy you. Like that Israelite family. There's a video a while back, right, of a so-called black man and his daughter in America. They bought a farm, and the neighboring farm, a bunch of honkies, Edomites. You know what they were doing? They were burning down Jake's crops. They were burning down the black man's crops for no damn reason, because they don't want to see you succeed. Then afterwards they call you niggers and they say, oh, look at you, you don't work hard enough. Well, we built America. We built the world. We built every single genre of music. We built fashion, style, everything. You name it. This world is on the temperature or the vibration of an Israelite. Okay, You honkies don't have nothing. Okay, we gave you the soundtrack to your life, you motherfuckers. All right, the way you dress and everything is all because of us. You crackers are on all fours. You understand? You damn devils, man. You got some fucking nerve, man. All right. You don't never leave anybody alone. And when they're trying to stay in peace, they want to be left alone. All right. Right. What do? You cause communal violence. You be racist towards them. Okay. I'll give you a perfect example. All right. An Edomite living in the Jake area. That Edomite will be safe. He won't be bothered. Right. So-called white kid won't be bothered. And I've seen this. But a so-called brown kid, a black or brown child, right, in a white man area, guaranteed, right? Guaranteed they're going to get harassed. They're going to get spat on. Why? Why? You know what it is? Our people are merciful. They have some kind of spiritual intellect, pursuant to Romans 10 verse 2, but not according to knowledge. Yeah, but the so-called white man is just naturally fucking evil, man. They don't ever leave you alone. They don't leave anything alone. They don't leave anybody alone. They have destroyed the whole world. And then they say, oh, look at all these foreigners coming here. All those foreigners that are coming into America and the UK are the same people you fucking honkies stole from. If you left them alone and their wealth alone, do you think they'd be in that country? Number one, you motherfuckers wouldn't exist. The only reason, so you know what it is with the white man? They don't like to work. They're used to stealing so much. And their forefathers are murderers and thieves. So what do? What do? They resort back to that. They don't want to work. They want to steal. They want to murder. Okay, that's their fucking nature, man. You understand? That's their nature. Galatians 6 verse 7, now these curses are coming back onto you. Deuteronomy 30 verse 7, the curses are coming back onto you. Slowly but surely. That's why a lot of you honkies in every brown area, it's mainly you outside gas stations that are begging. It's mainly you honkies that are strung out on drugs. And I laugh at that, man. I laugh at that. And I don't give you a fucking penny, man. All right? My people have been in pain for generations, man. Incarnation after incarnation. When the fuck did you help them, man? Huh? Jake struggling to make, his weight of cotton in the field, or trying to do some other work, building houses and homes. And what would you do when he's trying to get some rest at night or get some loving from his woman? You would take his woman away from him and grape her, man. You would grape him, take his butt cheeks and all that shit. You would take every ounce of dignity away from my people, man. You would murder our people, make fucking jackets out of their skin. You understand? Okay, you would get our babies, use them as bait, alligator bait, crocodile bait or whatever. All right, you would get Israelites. You beat the hell out of them. 100 of you would chase one Israelite, one so-called black, Hispanic, or Native Indian. Right? You'd burn that. You'd murder him. You'd burn him. Then you'd chop his dick off. Then you'd burn him, whatever, all these things. Man, you crackers have got some fucking nerve, man. And these fucking, everything's going to come back onto you double. You're going to drink the motherfucking dregs, bitch. Galatians 6 verse 7. Be not deceived. The Most High, Yahweh Bahashem Yahshai, is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You're going to reap it. You want to bring on the race war? You're going to bring it. Bring it. Bring it to London. All right? Bring it. All right, there's a lot of Israelites in London, man. You got your West Indian Jakes, you got your Nigerian Jakes, you got your Ghanaian Jakes, you got your Israelite foreigners from the northern India, Punjabi Jakes, you got Albanian Jakes. And all these people that I'm mentioning that are Israelite foreigners, they all click together. They all live in the same projects in London. What you call projects in America, they call, council estates over here in the UK. There's more of a nicer word for it, council estates. All right? They all click up. And when they know who the common enemy is, they're going to come for you. They're going to come for you. And this race war is going to happen. All right? Let's play the video, man. Salakia for me, for making it long-winded at the beginning. Sometimes you got to get a lot off your chest. So, apologies for that, but I'm going to play it now. There we go.
Life is functioning. Great Britain.
By the way, fair use, copyright fair use, 1976. I'm not making no money out of it. I'm just emphasizing what already is being stated here in the title. Slide into chaos. Is Great Britain about to explode in civil war? You're damn right it is.
Looks like a nation where life is functioning normally. Below the surface, however, lies a growing sense that the United Kingdom is coming apart at the seams. King's College London professor of war studies David Betts set off alarm bells this year by saying Britain is headed towards civil war, and he advised people living in its large cities to move before the violence starts. Imagine Northern Ireland scale, Northern Ireland in intensity, but on a completely national scale. Attacks on public figures, judges, potentially politicians. London Daily Telegraph columnist Tim Stanley told us he agrees with Betts that Britain is heading for open sectarian conflict.
It's going to happen. All right. And if you look at the so-called white man, right, a lot of you people believe every single news segment these crackers pull out. All right. You got to pick the meat from the bones. Now, this Diddy shit, all right, now all these arguments, who's a better rapper, Nas or Jim Jones and Diddy and what else? Tupac's alive. What else? What else? What else? What else? All these other sort of outlandish statements. And even though it could be true when they talk about P. Diddy being a mo, we know he's a mo. Everybody knows he's a mo. Jay-Z being a mo, drinking blood and all this kind of shit. They're going to talk about it. You know, they know the truth is out there, but they spin the truth in a way where you may believe it or you may not believe it, but they put it in your face. You know what I mean? Right? And they come out with all these stories, which there's truth to it, but they're going to come out with all these outlandish stories. They're basically going to come out with ninja stories. You know what I mean by ninja stories? Okay, the NIGGA stories to what? To basically capture the attention of Israelites. All right, because Israelites love, as Cat Williams would say, stories and news about ninjadom or niggerdom, right? You know, like Big Pun would say that nigger shit, right? In one of his tracks. Um, they like shit like that, and that's going to take them away. Even if they have any kind of inclination to even listen to the news or watch the news and pick the meat from the bones and watch the men of the Lord and sort of decipher it, or the men of the Lord will decipher it for them, and then they can take some kind of understanding. They're not going to watch it. It's to take you away. You know why? So you're going to get caught like a fucking deer in front of the headlights, man. If that's the saying, that's how it goes, right? You're going to get caught off guard, man. You're going to be like a boxer with your guard down. You're going to get juked. You're going to get smacked in the mouth. All right, and I'm just saying it lightly. What's going to happen? You don't need to pay attention, man. All right. And a lot of these, some of these, you got a lot of fucking actors out there as well, man. All these brown, black people. I hate saying the term black, but you know what I mean, bro. All right. They all got these different shades of brown people, all right, that are they're using to stage these flash robberies in stores and running into food places and walking in as homeless people. Then they start saying these crackers start saying usual suspects, and a lot of them are bots. A lot of them are bots because I usually respond to them, and then usually you get somebody that says you're banned from YouTube says you're banned from making comments or whatever. But recently I've been responding, and nobody's YouTube hasn't said a damn thing. You know why? Because a lot of these statements are made by bots. All right, usual suspect. So no one's reporting it because mostly it's all automated. Or maybe YouTube don't give a shit no more, right? So we know what they're doing as well. There's truth to that. There's a lot of truth that's chucking, on camera as well. But you've got to also look at it as well, where every time one of these criminal activities are happening, the motherfucker got his phone out ready, man, to capture everything from the start to the end, the response. But they don't want to intervene to stop it, but they're just recording away, man. You know what I mean? You got to look at it that way as well, man. They've got the phone ready. Sometimes that can happen too, as well, where you got the phone just ready, you're just recording and you capture shit. But a lot of this, okay, there's a lot of half truths out there, man. There's a lot of actors out there, and there's a lot of truth. And what they're doing with the actors, it is amplifying it, man. They're getting people putting ethnic garb on, saying Islamic slogans and shit. A lot of people wearing looking ethnic or whatever, even using probably Edomites with spray tans, trying to look ethnic to be, characters or criminals or pickpockets around London. Doesn't mean that it's not happening, but they emphasize on it even harder to what to cause a race war where there'll be violence between the white man and people of color. So they're focusing on everyone, especially in the UK. They're focusing on the so-called black man. They're focusing on Muslims. They're focusing on everybody except the Chinese, man. That was only a thing when that 1/9 thing came out. But now they've forgotten about them, though, right?
Okay, so there's a lot going on, man. You know. Conflict, possibly war, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
And his argument is this, that first of all, Britain displays many of the signs of being a failed state, such as economic decline, total loss of trust in the police, and a fractious and increasingly extreme politics.
At the center of this unrest is a government multicultural experiment that has brought in large numbers of Muslims without requiring them to integrate. More continue to arrive daily. This is Britain's southern border, the English Channel, across from the coast of France, and it's as porous as the Rio Grande River. 2 weeks ago, 1,200 illegal migrants arrived in a single day.
When you have a country in decline and you add large numbers of new people into the mix, what you end up with is ethnic conflict over resources.
Experts fear all that might be needed to trigger a civil war is another terror attack. White working class anger exploded last summer when the son of a Rwandan immigrant stabbed 11 children and 2 adults at a dance studio. 3 girls died. Social media posts initially misidentified the killer as an illegal. Now look at when they show the so-called black man, look how they show it. You know, they don't show no clean cut person. They show some bugged out motherfucker, and always like someone with a darker shade, right, with crazy hair, dreads and shit. And I'm surprised they got the motherfucking gold teeth in this mouth. I don't know Rwanda, what part of Rwanda? Where's Rwanda? South Africa, right? Let me see. Which part of Africa is Rwanda in? East Central Africa, East Africa. You know, Tanzania. Yeah, there's a lot of Jacob there because my dad lived in Tanzania in a place called Dar es Salaam, like Jerusalem, in the '70s for a little while, man. And incidentally, my dad's best friend was a guy called Moses who delivered my dad out of many issues. Yeah, my dad said that. That struck a chord with me, man. He goes, I said, yeah. He goes, what was your best friend's name? He goes, Moses. He helped me out a lot. He got him out of a lot of yeah, a lot of situations, and that was spiritual as hell, man. You know, spiritual as heaven. I mean, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of Jacob there, but this guy could be a Hamite, or this could be some AI picture, man. You know, you know. Migrant, sparking the worst riots in 10 years. Only much later did police reveal the killer possessed an Al Qaeda training manual. Right wing and working class British are also angry over what they claim is a 2-tier justice system that favors Muslims. Last week, this man was convicted of a crime for publicly burning a Quran in a political protest. A Muslim man with a knife who threatened to kill him faced no charges. Lucy Connolly, a 41-year-old mother, is serving 31 months in prison for a tweet appearing to encourage violence against illegal migrants after the murders of those 3 girls in Southport. She got more jail time than some of the members of this Pakistani sex grooming gang. Now, with these Pakistani sex grooming, I've been hearing about these guys for about 30 years. They do that shit. You know, they definitely do that shit. That's for real. That's for real. You know, they do that a lot. Muslims are fucking. Their religion is sick, man. You know, they do that shit. That shit's for real, and I've seen that firsthand. You know. Convicted for child prostitution and having sex with a minor. Add to this rising crime, Orwellian state censorship, and economic decline in many areas. Yeah, but it doesn't diminish the fact that the so-called white man, right, is the biggest murderer, biggest graper, biggest molester, biggest faggot, biggest dyke, biggest demon, biggest satanist on the planet. They are the biggest at everything. All right. When it comes to mastering evil and doing evil, it's the so-called white man at the forefront of it. These crackers think that they can just go around fucking everything up around the world, and the world is just going to be hunky dory and shit. That, you know, things are not going to come back tenfold against them, and it's coming back against them, man. You know, and it's all spiritual as well, man. All these white bitches that are being raped by these crackers, by these heathens and these other nations. They're basically just so-called white women whose forefathers probably raped their foremothers back in the ancient world, man, or whichever captivity was, whether it's a Persian captivity, you know, Elam probably goes, you know, whatever, man, you know, or whether it was a, you know, when you know, whichever rulership it was, you know, because remember, you know, you reap what you sow, man, you know, you reap what you sow. areas. Academic and news commentator Matt Goodwin. I think there is a widespread consensus in the country that Britain is a nation in decline economically, demographically, and culturally. There are areas that are just as poor as Eastern Europe, as parts of the developing world, in Northern England, in some of our coastal towns. The perception is, among the white working class, that the state actively prefers ethnic minorities and is funneling resources their way. Some white working class people, they're saying, why is it they get hotel?
Now, well, put it this way: a lot of those migrants that are coming in, some of them are sleeper cells. They're soldiers, which will be joining the ranks of the army or martial law troops when all hell breaks loose in this country. You might think, oh, that guy can't be a soldier, man. He's only like 5'7", whatever. He looks like he's like about 140 pounds. Hey, listen, man. Some of these little guys, they take their shirt off, they'll be all ripped and lean and shit. They'll pull out some moves and do a spin kick over your head. They're trained, man. They're trained also to blend in as well. They're not gonna send in fucking all the 6'5", 6'7" Dolph Lundgren type motherfuckers, man, or Hamites that are that big or whatever. They're not gonna send in those big ass Elamites or big ass Moabites, and they're there. They're gonna send in the ones that just blend in, that can blend in as a worker, that can blend in as your regular Joe. They won't shave for a couple of days. They have like about a week's growth of beard on their face. They'll look like they haven't had a haircut in 2 months or whatever, or in a month. They'll just blend right in. Put a cigarette in their mouth, looking like they, like looking for work or whatever. With a newspaper tucked underneath their arm. Like they're just somebody regular. They just start blending right in. But some of them are genuine people. Some of them are actual super soldiers. And this is and they whether they're getting all these benefits or not is another thing. But if they are getting any benefits, most of the benefits are going to the so-called white people, man, the Polish and the Russians that are coming in. And they're doing this, and this information is spreading like wildfire amongst the so-called white man. And what's that doing is pissing them off, and this is just gonna make them hate. Now they're putting all this hate towards Muslims and this and the third, right? And then you got people like Tommy Robinson, who I think is an Amalekite, that's his fake name, right, is using one part of a brown community to come up against another part of a brown community, which is Muslims. Not that I give a shit about Muslims, but he's using Indians versus Muslims, right? So basically, you know, uh, because of all because of the history with the Muslims and India in the past, right? So he's trying to amplify that, saying that, oh yeah, this faction or these group of so-called Asians, which are basically most people from India and Pakistan. Here in the UK, we call them Asians, right? Right? They're saying, okay, these are okay, but these Muslims are evil. But when these crackers start getting down and race, like the Jake said on the video the other day, he goes, what's he going to take for one of these ICE people or these ICE terrorists or ICE terrorists, right? To grip up an African American, a Judite, and say that he's Haitian. The same thing they're gonna do with regular brown people here, man. You could be mixed race, you could be, Edomite mother, Israelite father, Judite or Benjaminite father, and you look like kind of like a Middle Eastern person. The crackers are gonna come against you. Even whatever race you are, if you're brown, they're gonna come against you. They're not gonna give a shit if you're fucking Middle Eastern or Muslim or whatever. Okay, they're just using that Islam as a target. They're basically just saying it's going to be a race war between people of color and white people. But what these crackers got to understand as well, okay, and what most people got to understand is, well, white Edomites are not going to differentiate. They're going to say, "Oh, you Muslim first. If you're okay, you're Muslim. Oh, I'm going to fuck you up, man." You know, it's going to be they're going to go against everybody. But what these Edomites don't understand as well is that most people of color are going to stick together when it comes to the common enemy. And once the common enemy is dealt with, then there's going to be further war, because an enemy of uh, an enemy of an enemy, right? Is it an enemy? An enemy of an enemy is a friend, right? So if you are an enemy against somebody, but they've got a common enemy that you have as well, which is a so-called white man, they're going to come together. Like say a group of Polynesians, for example, and a group of Judites say, "Yo, Japheth and Judah say, okay, yeah, you know what? Let's team up, yeah, bruv. Not bruv, they're not our brothers, but you know what I mean. Yeah, let's team up. Let's take care of these crackers. And once we deal with them, then maybe we can get down. It might even go down like that. So, but we'll see when the time comes.
Rooms. Why is it they get welfare when we are struggling? The riots and the disturbances were symptomatic of a much deeper disillusionment in this country with the way in which British people just no longer feel safe in their own communities. They no longer feel safe in their country where lawlessness is essentially being sanctioned by the...
They don't feel safe. How safe were the native Indians? How safe were the so-called black men being taken in chains of slavery? How safe were the so-called Latinos, man, the other native tribes in America? How safe were the other countries or the natives or the other country you crackers went into? Huh? You went to parts of Africa, you went to parts of India, actually all of India, right? The only place you couldn't really conquer was northern India. You know why? Because there's a whole bunch of Israelites that were there. Stronghold. That's the last place you could take. You had to annex it, and you had to win the war against the Sikhs uh, in a fake way because the Sikhs are noble people. 90% of them are Israelites, right? And they would have times when there would be battle. They would have times of their rest. They would say, okay, we're going to war up until this time, and we're going to rest for the night, and then we're going to start fighting in the next day. But you know how honkies are. They're not going to go against that. They're going to fucking stab you while you're sleeping. There's no honor among them. The Sikhs fought valiantly, man. That's why they're the best warriors, best soldiers, best wrestlers, best looking. Why? Because most of them are Jake. And that's the culture I grew up in. Okay? And Esau couldn't penetrate that part of India. He couldn't take over it. Why? Because Jake was fucking fighting. Right? All right? How do you think the natives feel of these lands? They didn't feel safe. Huh? And all these made up wars that you go in the so-called Middle East, West Asia. Do you think that the people over there feel safe? They grew up around bloodshed and war. Now it's going to come back to you. Let me play the rest couple of minutes and we'll read some scriptures.
State. Political strategist Dominic Cummings says elements within the British government are finally beginning to discuss Britain's slide into chaos and the potential for serious violence. Oliver J.J. Lane is the bureau chief of Breitbart London. There are two sort of issues feeding into this, first of which is essentially civilizational collapse, which is causing a rise in crime and potentially...
Let me just say one thing. Civilization. Civilized. Okay? This cracker talks about civilization. Definition of the word civilized. Bring a place or people to a stage of social and cultural development considered to be more advanced. Okay, yeah. The so-called white man came to America, couldn't even eat or drink properly, couldn't talk properly, didn't know how to wash properly, couldn't plant crops. Who taught them? Who's civil? Well, the so-called native Indian, the tribe of Gad tried to civilize them. All right, you honkies are not civilized. You're a bunch of fucking animals. All right, you can't even say the word civilized. It's not for you. All right, because you're a bunch of animals. I mean, look how you look, for fuck's sakes. You think you're normal? Abnormal devils, man.
Civil unrest between ethnic groups. And then on the other hand, you have government incompetence and policing incompetence. And that creates that downward spiral. One pollster conducting focus groups in small English towns this year said the disillusionment was the worst I've heard. In every group, it was anger, despondency, or misery about the state of Britain that doesn't feel sustainable. One focus group member suggested Britain might need a coup. Professor Betts says civil war could also break out in France, as well as the United States. Stanley believes civil war in the UK could be avoided through the spiritual awakening already underway. There is something going on here. Church attendance is up. Young people are becoming more religious than ever. If there is a potential for change, it's going to come from society and the grassroots and ordinary people. It's not going to come from politicians. The famous British economist...
Well, the thing is, right, the Lord Yahweh Shemeshai, okay, is a man of war, all right? So the Lord wants war, all right? There's not going to be no spiritual growth here in the UK. First of all, the Lord's name ain't no fucking Jeebus, all right? And he's not a so-called white man, and he's not with you heathens, you Edomites and other nations, all right? So war is going to come. You so-called white people are not going to keep ruling. You're not going to keep ruling forever, all right? You crackers are going into slavery, all right? The Lord said, Yahweh Shemashah has set bounds that you devils cannot pass. All right? Okay? This is your ending. You are not going to progress any further. Let's go to some scriptures, man. Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. All right? And these are the same race of people, right? Same race. So-called white people are ruling over. Uh, you've got so-called white people that are basically protesting against their own kind. All right, okay. Obviously, they're not going to give a shit about nigger, but they don't give a fuck about no so-called white. They don't give a shit about their own. You think these so-called elites care about their own just because you got pale flesh? They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care. They only care about their so-called elites. And even amongst the so-called elites, there's infighting amongst those families. All right? They only care for themselves, man. You know? They only care for themselves. Second Ezra 15, verse 15. No, verse 14. Woe to the world and woe to the world, evil to the world, evil times. So the Lord is saying, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. All right, who's part of this world? 2/3 of our people, they're part of this world. The heathens is their world because there is no optimism for them anymore. There is no, oh man, I'm gonna do this in 20 years, and there's no soundtrack to their life anymore. There's no romance in the music no more. There's no futuristic feel. There's no niceness. There's that goose pimply where your hair stand up on end, like it feel, like you do when you hear some tracks from the 50s, 60s, or 70s, or 80s, or 90s. That feel ain't there no more. And all that music is Israelite music anyway, because the so-called black man especially invented all genres of music. That feel in the music is not there anymore, okay? Because the daughters of music have been brought low. So that feel of that, the movies, the fashion, the energy, the era, there's no flavor in this world no more. So optimism and feel-good factor is out of this fucking place because the Lord is destroying this place, all right? So destruction, evil coming to you lot, all right, that are part of this world. Okay, because the elect live in this world, but are not part of this world. All right, paraphrasing scripture. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Verse 15. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And there's been many times there's been race riots. There's been race riots in Liverpool in the 70s and 80s, South London in the 70s and 80s, and that was mainly Benjamin and Judah, right? And some Israelite foreigners that were fighting crackers and racist police back in them days. And then in the late 70s and early 80s, there was a race riots in a place called Southall, West London, all right, where a bulk of my family's from, right? And a whole bunch of Israelite foreigners and West Indians teamed up together against the skinheads, right? And fought the police as well. So wherever Jake is at, Elam's not going to get down like that. Remember, when it comes to race riots and shit, Elam ain't going to do shit. You understand? Elam is like like a person. You can smack him in the back of the head. They ain't going to really turn around and do anything. And I find it hard to believe sometimes these motherfuckers actually rule over us because they're such soft-bodied motherfuckers, But Israelite foreigners, right, is a different breed. All right, they were getting down with these crackers, man. All right, knocking out police officers and shit. All right, back in the day, Rasta man was helping out. We were all together, man. Obviously, I was like a baby at the time, and I'm in my late 40s now, so that was a while ago. You know what I mean? Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. All right, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And it'll be literal swords, it'll be guns, because if guns are on the street, a lot of people think, oh, it's England, guns are illegal. Yeah, drugs are illegal too in most parts of the world, but drugs are there, aren't they? Guns are here too, yo. All right? Guns are legal in Germany, France. Shotguns are legal over here. Handguns are easily bought and sold. Obviously, if you get caught with one, man, you've gone for a long time. But guns are here. All right? Submachine guns, everything. What you have in America, them, gangsters have them over here. All right? Verse 16. Let me read 15 again. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men. All right, they're coming together, they're talking, they're commiserating. They're talking about, oh, we should do this, we should do that, mate. Yeah, 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 yeah. We'll meet up at that pub and let's have a few drinks, get the boys together. Let's go and do this. Let's go packy bashing. Let's go nigger bashing. Let's go walk bashing. Let's get all them. Let's get them all them. Let's get them all them. Let's get all them walks. I know I'm just trying to copy the accent how these crackers would talk. You know, and for this for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They're gonna invade one another, man. You know, they're gonna look at you dressed all nice, you Jakes, your cars and shit. They're gonna get jealous, and this is what they're like. You know, they're jealous. Period, man. Even when because Esau doesn't have that drive and ambition to go further because everything they've achieved in life on this side is through theft. They haven't gone against the grain to achieve anything. And the ones that made it up the ladder in these to these C-suite roles in these professional companies, they just got through it quickly. They rose up the ranks, and you got a fucking 30-year-old that's a CEO interviewing you for a job, right? A 30-year-old honky that's interviewing you for a job. You know why? Because they went through the ranks quick. You know, they went through the ranks quick because this is their world. You know, but a lot of them are not. Some of them are still getting they're enjoying themselves, but a lot of them are not. All right. For there shall be sedition and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. They hate Keir Starmer. They hate the Queen. They hate Trump. They hate who? They hate everyone that's in power. All right. The same people that were bigging up Trump, motherfuckers are chucking shit at him now. Okay. They were bigging up the Queen in 1954, a coronation. Now they're talking about getting rid of the so-called monarchy. They were chucking eggs when the ugly motherfucker King Charles became a king. All right. They're chucking eggs at him. Nobody likes the powers that be right now, man. All right. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Once all this hell breaks loose, there'll be martial law. All right. But before martial law even takes place, man, you think this honky is going to say, oh, yeah, let's just, let's stop the violence. They're going to let that violence go on for a while. They're going to hold back the troops because they want to get a lot of people deleted before they do that. But they're going to allow certain areas to be unpenetrable. They're going to pretend. You know why? Because they want violence to go on. All right. Okay. Organized chaos. Problem, reaction, solution. Man. Hegelian dialectic. Pressure from above, pressure from below. This way they can control the narrative. Verse 18. For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Okay. When everything is sifting away or going away from the so-called white man, jobs, opportunity, his woman, his chances to better himself in life, all right, and they see their cities, being overrun by burqas and those breakfast bowl hats that these Muslims wear, and those Islamic type clothing, from the so-called Middle East. They see more of that. They see those moon and star flags. They see you see these Muslims walking around certain towns saying, "Oh yeah, you can't drink alcohol. This is a Muslim area. This is a Sharia zone." They see more of that, and they see their so-called white women dating openly with men of Muslim men or men of color in general, and they, especially the real attractive ones. And then they also see stories of these grooming gangs. They show more people, faces of color, whether it's AI or real or combination of both. It's only going to piss them off even more because they see themselves slipping away slowly, slowly, slowly. And in their spirit, they can feel it that, you know what, this is our last call. After this one, we're going to have no more chances. So they're going to get violent. They're going to get dirty. They're going to get grimy, man. Because listen, man, when you know spiritually, you may not know it that, oh, yeah, they're going in slavery. But the so-called white man that doesn't have the news in his mind or the information that he's going into slavery yet, they know spiritually something ain't right, and they know that they're slipping away. And the ones that have the knowledge, that are knowing that they're going to slavery, their motherfuckers are already in their bunkers. When the fuck do you ever see any of the Illuminati so-called members now? Do you see them in the news? Do you see so and so Rothschild or Rockefeller, man, at some damn club with a glass of champagne in his hand, with a cigar in one hand and a woman in the other? Even though he's a fag, he's probably going to say, "Oh yeah, you can go now." He's going to go back to the fucking his hotel and call one of them faggot ass boys with, with one of them leather hats and shit. That's what they are. They don't really like pussy like that. You ever see these motherfuckers anywhere now? They're nowhere, man. They're all in their bunkers now because they're living like you would do overground. They got the coffee shops. They got the fucking Beverly Hills style shopping situation over there. You know, they got that all underground, man. All right, and they got people already sea hipped. All right, they got everything for themselves. Okay, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Martial law. All right, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. That's gonna happen, man. All right. You could have like a whole like if you're an Israelite man living on a street and you got a house that you've worked hard on, you went to school, you got a scholarship, you became a doctor, or whatever. You worked hard, you got a nice house, you got yourself a beautiful wife, whatever race she is, doesn't matter, and all these and you're the only basically there's one or two brown families on that street, and you two are doing quite well, or even if you're doing similar to them, but because you're an Israelite, you got the extra, the extra flavor, extra shine. Who do you think they're going to take the anger out on? They're going to blame everything on you. Okay, they're going to blame everything on you. They're going to come to your doors. You niggas that want to live around these honkies like that. I don't blame you because nobody wants to be around wines, no matter what package they come in, right? But you people that want to live around these heathens, man, you're crazy, man. I always see why Jake want to live around these honkies, man. Just find an area that's somewhat so-called mixed, you know, you know, just get yourself a decent apartment or whatever, man. As long as it's clean and somewhat safe for your wife and children or whatever, or on your own or whatever, you know, you don't have to live in no damn honky area, man. You know, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. All you G ninjas out there, man, you're gonna be afraid, man. When hell breaks loose, you're gonna like to walk around with your choppers. Well, if you got them guns, you better use them when that time comes. Verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Jealousy, lack of bread, lack of money. Hey man, lots going to go. Okay. Behold, saith the Most High. Okay, cool. I think that should do it. Let's go to Jeremiah 30, verse 7, man. Jeremiah 30, verse 7, KJV. 30, verse 7, man. 30. Jeremiah 30, verse 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Who's the he that's going to be saved out of it? It's the elect. The elect are going to be covered. Pursuant to Psalms 34, verse 7. Man. The elect are going to be covered. All right, but the rest of yous, because Jacob's trouble is everybody's trouble, but Jacob is going to be the primary target. All right, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, as well as you Israelite foreigners, because Esau, even if you look like them or like a heathen nation, they're still going to come for you because there's going to be some spiritual. They're going to know spiritually that you don't want to, he's not like us. There's going to be that factor as well. All right, even though some of the elect members that look like other nations are, the Lord has made them has made them covert, covered them so they can get past situations. There could be like a whole bunch of KKK members masked up, and an Israelite, with blonde hair and blue eyes, looks like some fucking pale devil from Scandinavia or Sweden, but he's actually a Judite or a Gadite, you know, you know, and he can walk by the situation. They'll probably say, "Hey, you need any help? You see any niggers up there?" And he might say, "Nope, I didn't see none," and he walk right past. He could be an elect member. There's situations like that, man. The Lord will cover the elect Jakes with the original look, man. The Lord will cloak them or whatever. The Lord will do magnificent things in these times. Yeah. Oh, that's the spirit. I just clicked on this video. It's ready to watch. Our captivity is coming to a close. Indeed, it is. Indeed, it is. Oops. There's that. There's so many videos open, different situations. All right. So yeah, man, it's gonna get down like that. It's gonna get down. Is Great Britain about to explode? And they talked about all the major areas that are going to go into violence. They talked about the UK, America, Australia, New Zealand, because they're doing everything. And if you look at all the countries they mentioned, they're the major strongholds of the so-called white man. The UK, America, Australia, New Zealand. And they talked about France too. France has got a whole bunch of Israelite foreigners there, bro. you know, that click up with Jake, the Nigerian Jakes there, the West Indian Jakes, that speak nothing but French, you know. That's when they're gonna get down and dirty in France, man. They're gonna get down and dirty up there. Wherever the strongholds of Esau is, the so-called white man is gonna get down and dirty, man. You know, these days, like a lot of us that grew up in the 70s and 80s, back then we stuck with our own. From in anything social, we stuck with our own. The only time we were around heathens or so-called white people was work, due to work situations. I remember back then, bro. You wouldn't very rarely see a brown woman with a honky back then. Now it's like a common thing, man. But you would see white women with brown guys all the time back then. There was a lot of racial pride back then, staying with your own, man. Social circles, dating, you know. But you got to go back to that mindset. I'm not talking about Jake. That you want to deal with a white woman, deal with a white woman. Just just keep your head on a swivel. I mean, just keep your head on a swivel. Period, man. But for our women, you shouldn't be dealing with a honky in the first place or any other nation. But the rest is on you. The Lord will take care of everything, man. That He needs to take care of. But you better, you guys have to go back to that mindset of just, being around your own a lot more. And even within your own, you got to be even careful because there's 2/3 there as well. But the start would be just to stay around your own and socially, you know, and no matter what race of woman you're with, always be careful where you go out and about and be ready and alert. And if you are having a drink of wine or beer, don't be drinking alcohol when you're out with your significant loved ones or whatever. Be alert. You want to get nice indoors, you know, inside your house, prayed up, locked up the door, you're in the yard, then you get nice. You don't have a few drinks. It's just that kind of time, man. But anyway, all praise to Yahweh Hashem Hashai, Hashem HaKadosh, Mawatha Bat Babal, Kwame Yashwala.